Hello, my name is Amy White. For this week's discussion thread, Historical Scholarship, I will be utilizing the Oxford Scholarship online database to research the Rwandan genocide. Through my study, I found two books and utilized 4 different chapters out of them. And it really provides a historical precedence set between the 1950s and the genocide in 1994. The first book is titled Rwanda Before the Genocide, Catholic Politics, Ethnic Discourse in the Late Colonial Era by J.J. Carney, and published in 2013. These chapters were profoundly engaging and well-researched. Carney begins by setting a backdrop of the tensions that began to simmer during the 1950s into a resulting storm that had been building for generations. The country of Rwanda was going through this rocky period. The Catholic Church and other foreign states were interfering, which as a colonized nation had been occurring before. And essentially, this impedes Rwanda's progression into developing their own national foundation and identity as such. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Carney details the actions of the Rwandan Archbishop Andre Pardon, a Swiss-born Catholic who lived in the country for nearly 50 years and had a ministry of evangelism as well as education for the people of Rwanda. In this pastoral letter, he wrote about social injustice and the need for reform and race relations in Rwanda. And really notes the inequality between the two major tribes of the Hutu and the Tutsis. Whatever his intent was, it was considered to be supportive of Hutu compensation and their attempt to get power in the nation. Throughout the colonial period, the Tutsis had dominated the Rwandan monarchy and ruled over the country, surviving both through the colonial powers and into this new era of modernity. As they were a minority tribe, while the Hutus were making up much more of the population. And this letter really legitimizes the plight of the Hutus, in a sense, starting this turning point in Rwandan history towards reform as the Hutus saw it. At this point, the Belgians really stepped in to quell the uprisings and start pushing towards democrat governments being installed. And the two tribes really take two political sides to this, and it turns into this winner-takes-all kind of political drama. Ultimately, the Belgians are reading this and seeing the majority Hutus, and they're pulling back from the Tutsis in a way. And so the Hutus do take power. The Tutsis are not going to take this lying down and form a militia and attempt the coup. The coup fails. As a result, the Hutus annihilate any Tutsi political opponents, and they massacre thousands of civilian Tutsis in the countryside, essentially quieting the Tutsi opposition. And the church really responds with consternation, but they're not holding anybody accountable, including the government now ruled by the Hutus. And this anti-Tutsi kind of violence and rhetoric develops and continues to grow over the years, over really the next 4 decades into the 90s. Now, the second book that I went over is called Beyond the Banality of Evil, Criminology and Genocide by Augustine Brannigan. And he aims to look at the sociogenesis and psychogenesis implications of the Rwandan genocide. Providing historical context of the genocide in Rwanda by utilizing government reports as well as NGO reports, and develops a real narrative that attempts to better understand where the mindset of the Rwandan people was at this time, primarily with the Hutus. It is noted in this book that the oddest factor of the genocide was the mass mobilization of previously nonviolent Hutus into this killing spree, looting and raping of people across the country. It's also noted that it was a real rarity at this time for other Hutus to reach out and be supportive and hide their Tutsi neighbors. The sheer efficiency with which this genocide occurred was staggering. It was a ferocious movement across the country, transpiring in just about 100 days or 3 months' time. And one could infer that this really occurs so quickly, unlike in the Holocaust, because the Hutus were not interested in covering up these crimes against humanity. They just swept through the countryside killing without any attempt to cover up the bodies or anything of that sense. So these documents, these books really, they provide an essential background information that I think is critical to understanding the root causes of the Rwandan genocide, and then also the diplomatic history of the international community at this time. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to hearing from you all in the comments, and I hope you have a great day.